One second. All right. Well, good morning. This is Couples Academy Live.
Hey there.
My name is Hassani.
And this is Danielle.
And we are Couples Academy. And if this is your first time watching, every single morning, Mondays through Fridays around 9 a.m., we come on and just share information that is empowering for you, your marriage, and your family. We're currently in a love series, and we're excited about that because we're really breaking down the components of love from a biblical perspective. And we know in First Corinthians, it talks about love, agape love. And so we've covered the two first aspects of love. And today we're jumping into an important topic that I think a lot of couples are struggling. And we want to talk about how love does not envy. You know, when you think about being married, you never think necessarily envy your spouse.
No.
Like, it sounds like a ridiculous concept. Why would I envy my spouse? My spouse, it speaks to my ability to properly select. I should be proud. I should be happy with who I chose. But there's so much competition. There are so many power struggles that exist in relationships today. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we actually envy them.
Yeah, I don't think we walk into these relationships like this all the time. I think that somewhere along the line, somebody starts pulling ahead in the race, and the other person is looking at that and saying, well, I should pull ahead in the race. And then I feel like that's where the competition begins. It begins with career. It begins with physicality. You know, if somebody gains weight and the other one stays fit. And if you have a competitive nature in your relationship in general, it could actually flood every area of your relationship, from cooking to entertaining to having the most wittiest thing to say to everything. So that's something that we want to steer away from, because envy is something that's really in secret. Like, we secretly envy what somebody else is doing, but we start to operate with this passive aggressive nature. And we're going to get into that.
Envy. Wow. You said it. You said when we compete with our spouse. Our spouse is there to complete us, not to compete with us. I become a better version of me because I'm connected to someone who could pull the best out of me. Where I'm weak, my partner may be strong. Where she's weak, I'm strong. And when we come together, we cover each other's weaknesses. So we're not in competition with each other. We're not pointing out each other's faults and flaws and idiosyncrasies and weaknesses. But when we come together, we compensate and complement and complete each other. And I think that is the missing element. That is what becoming one is. But when you are envious of your spouse, it's a problem. And actually, it's a thing. There's something called significant other envy. And the fact that there's even a term to it speaks to the problem that exists. And so the reality is, I think a great concept for us to understand is that we were all created equally, but we are not all equal. I'll say that again. We were created equally, but we are not all equal, and that is okay. Like, for instance, we both have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears. God created us equally, but he put different skills, gifts, talents, abilities, personality styles within us, not for competition, but to complete one another. How whack and boring would the world be if we were all exactly the same?
We'd be robots.
We would be robots. Life would be great. There would be nothing to look forward to. But when there is difference and uniqueness in your partner, that is what makes life truly exciting. And so as long as we're competing with our partner, there's a problem. Now, you were talking about this. These are the areas in which we compete. Like, for instance, if my spouse is further or more advanced in their career, and I feel some type of way about it because I'm not currently where they're at, that can cause competition and envy.
I think what I've seen in many relationships is that the envy comes in if one person is, say, allowed to do it and maybe the other person isn't for whatever reason. Like, I'll go first and the other person's time never comes around. So it's just like, okay, I waited for you to go get your education. I've heard a lot of women say this. I waited for them to get their education, to get their job and all this and all that. When is it my turn? So that is one reason why envy can come into play.
So
I'm envying the fact that you have the opportunities that I did not have.
Right. So you have your degree and you think you're somebody and things of that nature. And I still got my GED, or I still have my bachelor's and my associates. And now I'm hating on what you got. Now, I helped you get what you get.
I helped you get
right?
there.
I'm the one who supported the family and
Yeah.
held things down while you did what you did. And now it becomes an issue. So while we were once on the same team and once had the same agenda, now when you got what you got, there's a problem.
And also, we might have started at the same place. You've heard the term started from the bottom, now we're here.
Yes.
Well, if we both started from the bottom, but you've elevated to the upper levels of your career, of your education, and I'm still at the bottom, now I might have some envy.
Envy. And envy doesn't only show up in a person's career, but it can show up in finances. Now, this speaks to a larger issue because there's so many people who do finances separately in the context of their marriage. I have my money, you have your money. I have my savings, you have your savings. I have my debt, you have your debt. So we're going Dutch, right? So, okay, so you think you somebody because you have $40,000 more than me in your savings. So I'm looking at your investments and I'm looking at the fact that I got more debt than you. And now I'm envious of your financial state because I'm not where you are. And now that creates the divide. And so when it comes to finances, okay, so you can go out and you can buy whatever you want. I see you got a new suit on. I see you got a new pair of shoes on. And then all of a sudden it becomes what I got versus what you got.
Yeah.
And now we got to compete with each other.
I think that couples tend to feed the envy too. It's like a monster, right? The green-eyed monster. Well, we're feeding it by lording things over one another. Like, you know, if the money thing isn't even an issue, if mine is yours and yours is mine, and it's not an issue, there's probably no room for envy. But if I'm holding it over your head that I've saved more than you, I got more than you, and I make it a thing, then you could start to feed that green-eyed monster in your spouse.
Yeah.
And that really does apply to anything and everything.
It does.
You actually have a lot of the power to feed this thing or to starve this thing.
Another place or space where we can begin to envy our spouses when it comes to their circle of friends. Let's just say your spouse is an extrovert and they are very sociable, and your personality is more introverted and you like being by yourself. There can be some type of envy about that person's social world, their influence. Why you always got to go out? Why you always got to go out with your friend? Why can't you stay home? Like, you become envious of the fact that they have a life for themselves that they're enjoying, and you don't get to engage in what they engage in. We see this happen all the time. Sometimes people are envious of just another partner's brilliance. Maybe there are just skill sets or knowledge base or a knack for things that your partner has that you don't have, and you underneath your breath begin to murmur and complain
underneath your green skin.
That's right. And it's just like, why are you hating on me for being me? And I've heard many people say that I've had to mute myself in my partner's presence for fear of how they may perceive me. So if I'm just having a good time and having a great conversation, obviously there's an ulterior motive to what I'm doing. And so that creates dissension and discord amongst the partners. Let's just acknowledge hey, Instagram, we see you. We're waving at you.
Hey.
We also have people. Hey, Ivy, good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
And from Kenya, good to see you. Erica, who can withstand envy? I don't know. It's a difficult issue that many people struggle with. That's why we need to overcome it. Mike, checking in and learning from Daytona Beach, Florida.
There.
Good to see you. Angela Boyce, good to see you. Anthea, good morning. Good morning. Althea and Yolanda. Is that so envy is real. Now, I'm not asking you to put yourself on Front Street, but do you know another couple who happens to struggle with envy, where there's this competition? And really, when you think about envy, you're dealing with an ultra competitive spirit within the relationship. It becomes a very adversarial, opponent-based type of dynamic in the relationship, and it's hard to come together as one when you feel like your partner is your adversary.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's as outspoken as we might think it is. I almost feel like a lot of times it's not spoken. Like, how often do you say I envy you? Like, you don't ever really tell anybody I envy. That's why they call it like the green-eyed monster. That's why you're over there ruminating and angry about what somebody else has going on, but you don't really speak it out. You show it by your actions, right? You show it by not acknowledging a person, or by just being angry about, like what Hassani said, about who they are and what they do. And I think the root of it is that, we are each other's mirror. And so if your reflection, your spouse's reflection upon you causes you to feel insecure, which it really can. It could illuminate all the issues that you have within you. It can illuminate for you all your own doubts, all your own issues and concerns for yourself. And now you're hating on them because they seem more complete than you or more fulfilled than you.
So very true. And so it's just like, well, why do you get all those accolades? What about me?
Right. How come when I say a joke, nobody says anything? Right.
It's the what.
Why you gotta put a tie on every day?
Who you trying to impress?
You trying to get somebody to say something about your tie? You know, it could be anything.
It is.
Nobody said anything when I cooked tonight. When you cook, everybody got something to say. You know,
it's like there's this ultra competitiveness, but at the same time, you're dealing with a dynamic where two people are always trying to one up each other. They try to one up each other in private, and they also try to one up each other in front of other people. So friends come over to the house. Who's going to get the more attention? Who's going to be most engaging? Who's going to be the most entertaining one? Who's going to be the one who gets all the shine and the spotlight? And you could see it unfolding right before you, where couples actually do this, and you're looking like, what is going on up in here? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah.
And so, rather than seeing the oneness, you see the separateness, and it comes out and rears its ugly head.
Say that again. Rather than seeing the oneness, because folks, we see you. Everybody sees you. You can't hide. So when you go to the social event and we see this and everybody sees this playing out, it reveals your lack of oneness. It shows your separateness, even though you think you playing it off and you're not.
If you really want to understand the power of envy, just listen to this quote. Nathaniel Vincent said, "How much of hell is there in the temper of an envious man? The happiness of another is his misery. The good of another is his affliction. He looks upon the virtue of another with all evil eyes and is as sorry at the praise of another as if the praise were taken away from himself. Envy makes a hater of his neighbor, and it becomes his own tormentor." Now, it's one thing to say, I envy my neighbor. I want the car they have. I want the house they have. I want the career they have. But when your neighbor is your spouse, doesn't the Bible say, love your neighbor like you love yourself, love your spouse like you love it? So if your neighbor is the person that you live with, your spouse, your partner, and you become envious of them, that can really deteriorate the foundation of a relationship. It keeps couples from being able to move forward. So you can't in one breath say, I love my spouse, but yet envy your spouse. You cannot love what you envy. And that's why we have to really begin to change the dynamics of this entire relational foundation and start off right. And a lot of times we envy our partner because the relation started off wrong. Like you came in with the wrong mindset. And so therefore there has to be a mental paradigm shift where we go from being single-minded to couple-minded, to not being independent in our thinking, but interdependent in our thinking, in the way that we function in our relationship. Darlene says, I can't share my accomplishments on my job because my husband used it in an argument against me as if I'm counseling him. Yeah. Isn't that a shame?
Yeah.
Where
I can't come home excited about nothing that happened because you will not be happy for me, or you will downplay it. Not you, but you know who.
So you have to have all your conversations with your friends, with your family, with
and
people.
That's what folks do. They do not come home with it. They celebrate with their friends. They celebrate it with their job family. Because you have your job family. They're happy for you, but you dare not say it at home.
Because they understand. They know the struggle. They know what I've gone through. They see the sacrifice, and they're willing to acknowledge and celebrate me. But when I come home, there's nothing worse than not being celebrated, but only being tolerated. And that's what happens in families, and that's what happens in marriages today.
Wow.
So the fact that you can't share an accomplishment is just crazy.
It is.
Or if you do, it's just like, okay, that's nice.
You do see that showing up a lot with families too. Right? Like when you make it or something like that, then you can't go back to your family because they remind you quick. I remember you when, right? Don't get too high and mighty. Like, you know what I'm saying? So envy, I think that at the end of the day, you think about jealousy, right? Jealousy to me is a symptom that if not treated can become envy. It's almost like when you catch a cold. Like you catch a cold, it's a germ. If you don't deal with that germ quickly, then it becomes a fever, and that fever can really get you very sick. It's the same thing with jealousy and envy. You start out feeling the jealousy for somebody, right? and you allow that jealousy to take root. And next thing you know, you are envious. And I don't think envy is so easy to pluck out like jealousy is to just correct. I think envy is now a condition that needs to be dealt with.
And when you think about some of the root causes of that envy, because you're right, it's not easy to pluck out, because when you think about an iceberg, you only see the portion above the sea level, but there's a larger part of that iceberg underneath.
That's envy.
And exactly. And there's some inner issues that a person came into the relationship with, which is impacting their ability to show up and love the right way. One of them is really a lack of love for themselves.
Straight up.
See, you can't truly love your spouse if you don't love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people come in with they don't love themselves. They have a poor image of who they are. And because maybe they didn't have the right environment that they were raised in, or maybe they were told what they weren't, what they'll never be, they have such a negative view of themselves. So they're looking at their spouse through the lenses of that same negativity. That's a huge problem.
Maybe also that had a part to play in how they picked you. Maybe they picked that spouse thinking that, you know what, I could work with this person. They're not gonna, maybe they underestimated you is my point. Maybe they didn't think that you was actually going to rise up above them. And now that you're up there, it further magnifies their own deficiencies.
Absolutely. Yolanda says very, very hurtful. It is.
It is hurtful.
Another root cause of this whole envy is insecurity. You know, actually, when you feel insecure about yourself and you're not confident in you don't feel secure in your own being, you begin to project the level of envy towards your spouse because you're envious. You're envious because you're insecure. Now, another thing is inadequate. When you're constantly comparing yourself to your partner, a lot of times it's because you have feelings of inadequacy. So every time you look at your partner, it's a reminder of what you failed to do in your own life, what you haven't accomplished for yourself, who you haven't become in terms of your own expectations. And you see in your spouse what you wish you saw in yourself, and that creates the problem.
Literally, it sounds like all those issues are the same.
It is.
Right? Inadequacy and perceived lack of worth, lacking of self-value, all of that is coming from a terrible place within us,
Lack is a huge thing. When you have a spirit of lack, it really keeps you from really acknowledging all that you have within the context of your marriage. And as I said in the beginning, who you chose as a partner speaks to your ability to properly select. You chose the right one. So if I'm envious of the fact that you get attention that I don't get, if I'm envious of the fact that you're really excelling well in your career in a way that I'm not, if I'm envious of the fact that you're financially astute and you know how to properly manage money, or you know how to socially engage because you have certain personality skills, that speaks to my ability to I selected the right one.
Right.
So why would I hate on the very thing that is mine?
Right.
We are one.
Yeah.
So in essence, I benefit from your greatness. I don't have to look at it as I become smaller because of your greatness.
And think about that playing out in life, the whole crab in a barrel mentality that I got to pull you down because if I'm not climbing, you're not climbing either. Well, put that in the confines of your relationship and you'll find that you both really can't go too far. Like you're both emotionally hindered because of envy. Because if I can't lift you up, if I can't give you the accolades that you need and the praise that you need, if I'm not excited and encouraged by what you accomplished, I'm literally holding my own self back from my own joy. It brings me joy when we move forward in any area, because if you move forward, it's we. If I move forward, it's we. Every blessing is we. So we get to celebrate. But if I'm so focused on pulling you back down in the barrel, I'm literally keeping us both in this bucket of misery. Because you can't shine and I can't shine because it won't be honored and respected.
But I think you said it right. We. It's the team of we. And you have to think in the concept of we, us, our, not she, he, not him, her. See, when you think individual, envy begins to creep in. When you think we're a unit, we're one, we're a team, there's no room. You don't envy your partner. Your partner helps you win.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge problem. We have a lot of, now I see comments on Instagram. I don't have my glasses. That's why I'm struggling to read this morning.
Hey guys, sorry I couldn't stay. I'm not, okay, somebody just checking in, but hey guys, we see you up there.
All right. No two people will be accomplished as the other spouse. You both will benefit and you should be proud either way. Come together and grow. Absolutely true. There's no argument with that. Then you have Kisha. Y'all are teaching good. Well, I appreciate that. Then we have Sonia. The person who is accomplished has to be sure that they are not telling their spouse that they're not making their spouse feel some type of way because they have not grown in certain areas. Listen, guys, I don't have my glasses. I can read. I just don't have my glasses.
Yeah, absolute, Sonia. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, we don't need to feed the envy monster, right? Because the person that is accomplished, depending on their personality, they could have their own issues, their own insecurity issues. Just because people are, make no mistake, there are a lot of very insecure, successful people out there. There really are. And so if that person comes home and reminds you of what you ain't and what you ain't got, then now you're feeding envy into your person. So you're absolutely right about that.
So what do we do to solve this envy problem? Because it's real and it's evident and it's happening in relationships everywhere. I think the first thing is learn to love yourself. Like whatever your own individual issues are, your idiosyncrasies, deal with that. Because if you don't deal with that, it will bleed into your marriage and cause all types of problems that don't need to exist.
Absolutely.
The second thing I think you need to do is actually learn your partner. See, the more you understand your partner and begin to learn your partner, you can't envy what you have an understanding of. So I think in some respects, envy and ignorance go hand in hand. And I think that taking the time, and we talk about becoming a student of your spouse, getting your PhD in your partner, because the more you know them, the more you know how to effectively interact and deal with them and work together in a relationship. But another great thing that you can do is learn to support your partner. Like, be your partner's cheerleader. Understand that when your partner wins, you win, because you're on the team of we. And so I don't have to try to pull my spouse back because my pace is not as fast. Maybe I look at my spouse and my spouse becomes an inspiration for me. And I begin to grow and I begin to do better and I begin to become more because I have a living, breathing example in my own life. And the last piece is you got to get rid of the comparisons. Stop comparing yourself to your partner. You are one. And I think that oneness mentality, that is the biggest shift. Like a successful marriage is based upon having the right mindset. It all starts in the mind. And so when you take on a oneness mentality, the team of we, you're not my competitor, but you're here to help complement and then complete me. I think it gives us a different perspective of how we do marriage. And that is what begins to allow us to love one another. So if the Bible says love your spouse the way you would love yourself, if you don't love you, you can't love your spouse.
That's true.
So you and the key to it all is having the love of God within you. I think a lot of us have our own idea and interpretation and worldview on what love is, and it's fickle because it's based upon feelings and emotions that are fleeting. Sometimes your partner gets on your nerves and you may not feel like you love them. Then the next day, they're the best thing in the world. Well, that's not stable. The love of God creates the stability in your life and in your marriage that will allow it to work. So these are the components of envy.
Yeah, I tell you, you said it right there with love, because love will cover all the sins. And, you know, you got people out there that are married to folks that are egotistical, that have narcissistic tendencies. And so when you're dealing with these things in your relationship, really, there's really nothing that you can say. Somebody that is in love with themselves and their whole mission is to cause you to feel depleted and less than so that they can shine. They are somebody with the ultimate insecurities. And that's something that only God can cover. So we need to go to the source for all of this, but love covers a multitude of sins. And so you can even love your narcissistic partner through it, your egotistical person through it, while God touches them, because honestly, that's what it would take, God to touch them to change and transform. So, you know, these are the things that we want to avoid, guys, in our relationship. Envy, what is that? It doesn't do anything positive for us, and it causes more distance and separation in our marriages. And we're trying to help you come together in your marriages.
So last thing, I know some of you may be listening right now saying, that's exactly what my spouse does. They envy me when it comes to this and me. I want you to take the focus off of your partner and put the focus on yourself and begin to check your own heart. Where do I envy? And if so, where? What spaces and places does it rear its ugly head? Does it creep up where maybe I've been unaware? And the more self-aware you become, and the more you can deal with the realization that, maybe I do feel some type of way because he or she has outdone this or outdone that.
Or just is this,
or
and
just
is that.
exactly. Well, the perception is
Right.
that they've outdone.
Yeah.
But the reality is they just are. That's just who they are. But begin to journal and write down those areas where you think envy may be popping up, and then go before God and pray and ask God to reveal some things to you, and then begin to study it out. Like, we always encourage you, tune in every single day, because there's always information that's really going to enhance your life. But do some research, study it out. The more self-aware you become about how you show up, the better you'll be able to effectively love your spouse.
Sean D says, people marry for the wrong reasons. You can't love one day and envy your husband the next. Seek counseling. You need help. 100.
And that's what Couples Academy is for. So if you're struggling with envy in your relationship and you know you need help, look at the number at the bottom of the screen. Go to the website, couplesacademy.org. Set up a free discovery call. We would love to work with you. I will say, people have been calling because they realize it takes more than just themselves to overcome their situation. And so, listen, free discovery call, 15 minutes. Let's engage in the conversation and come up with a plan to figure out what you can do to take your relationship to the next level. Hope this was helpful. We will see you tomorrow morning. Have a phenomenal day, guys. Love you.
Bye.